Get in the know. Non-stop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
Yes, and it is official what we all presumed. Kevin O'Connell naming Nick Mullens the new and fourth starting quarterback, right? Yeah, because Jaren Hall started a game. Dobbs, Cousins. The fourth starting quarterback for this 2023 Viking season. We'll dive into what Kevin O'Connell said, our thoughts on it. We'll tee up. It is mock season now. The mocks are ramping up now that the college football regular season's over. Dude, CBS Sports is already at 4.0. Before the first of the year, they're at 4.0 on their mocks.
That doesn't like reset in the new year, right? So they're going to be like at what?
12
something? 12?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like how many mocks do you? Wow. Interesting.
There's going to be at least like another one before the combine, maybe two, right? And then there's got to be at least one right after the combine. And then there's the pro day mocks. And then there's the, I mean, we're talking double digits for sure.
This is like Matt Hardy V1, Matt Hardy version 1.0. Like where do you go from here, in my opinion, with these mocks?
We're going to find out with CBS. Judd, why don't you tell the audience about your favorite neighborhood sports bar, Park Tavern?
Yes, I was going to say that's the official sports bar of the Sports Dad, Park Tavern. Look at that right there. Bowling. You say bowling. That's exciting. I say, eat, drink, party, bowl. Park Tavern, it's got everything. Yes, bowling's only the start. It's got 2 bars. It's got all of the games on. Delicious beers on tap. Great food. Park Tavern is the place to go. It is a place to gather as well. Park Tavern has not just a small, like if you're like, I'm going to throw a company party and, 20 people or so, Park Tavern, guess what? That is easy. We're talking 40, we're talking 60 people. We're talking big groups here. Park Tavern's got it all. Plus a special right now on holiday gift certificates, which are great to give as gifts. Park Tavern, located in my neck of the woods here in St. Louis Park. ParkTavern.net is the place to go to book an outing, to check out all of the delicious menu, to check out all of the beers. ParkTavern.net is the place to go.
And before we dive in here, a shout out to our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. Federated, as I always say here, it's like having a great offensive line for your business. Think about how you can elevate your business through risk management. Sometimes it's not, when you're talking about profit margins and growth of your business, yes, there's adding to the top line, but there's also just avoiding the risks and making sure that you are protected in the right way as a business. And that's where Federated comes in with over 100 years of experience dating back to 1904. They're based in Owatonna. They are one of us, so to speak, as Minnesotans. And you can find out all kinds more information at federatedinsurance.com, where it's our business to protect yours. Here's what Kevin O'Connell had to say. I'll read you guys part of this transcript when asked about the quarterback situation and the change to Nick Mullens. He said, when we lost Kirk Cousins, we were 4-4. We're now a game over 500. So they're playing above 500 football. As weird as that sounds based on what we've seen recently, they are playing above 500 football. Now, for the better part of 4 games and 3 quarters, Dobbs led us to 3 wins. There's a lot of teams in this league that when they lose their starter, it takes a lot to overcome that and continue pressing onward, which I agree with. I think most teams would die to be above 500 over like a month and a half, right? I think Josh understands the process and where we've been at. I think he has respect for the opportunity he had, keyword had, in the past, and some of the really good things that he did. In communicating with him, I just want to make sure he knows exactly what the thought process is. The idea was to make sure that there's full transparency with these guys. So he sat down with Josh, basically said, I don't know, hey, you're not accurate enough. You're a little bit of a beat late on some of these reads, and you fumbled a million times too. I do believe Nick Mullens gives us the best chance to win the football game this Saturday, and that's the decision we made. So what are your thoughts on just his explanation and his decision to go with Nick Mullens?
I think it's entirely fair. And look, he gave Dobbs, he could have benched, and I'm sure that you could make a case that he should have, but he could have benched Dobbs after the debacle against the Bears, and nobody would have batted an eye. Like it wouldn't have been like, oh my God, I can't believe you're pulling the rug out from under Josh Dobbs. He gave him an incredibly fair chance. He worked with him through the bye week, like everything. O'Connell is the anti-Zim, right? the reactionary, I hate quarterbacks guy and Zim. This is the anti that. This is the guy who clearly sympathizes because, Dobbs is a 4th round pick who has bounced around. Now, he has actually played quite a bit, but O'Connell was a 3rd round pick who sort of bounced around too and didn't play much. But the point is, I think this is incredibly fair. And I think what we saw, and I do not expect Nick Mullens to be the magic elixir here, but I think what we saw on Sunday, where he just came in and sort of stabilized things.
Yeah.
You have to go to him. And you can't tell me that there weren't people in that building after the Bears game who said, make the change. Because there was a case, rightfully so, to have been made that when Cousins got hurt, if Mullens hadn't been on IR with a back problem, Mullens steps in then.
Yeah, that was the plan for 2 years, right?
So I think that, you use the term that you want, intentional, fair, everything that the Vikings have done here in, what is a tough predicament. This does suck. And it sucks for every team that has a prominent starting quarterback go out. I think the Vikings, I think that the head coach has been incredibly fair. And I think it would be a disservice to the locker room if you actually said, let's give Josh Dobbs another one more start.
Nick Mullens is obviously a capable backup, and that's why you traded for him 2 off seasons ago, or 2 summers ago, I should say, to make a spot start for you. And now here you are with the NFC wildcard picture kind of, again, falling backwards as the Vikings kind of hold serve and basically are in the driver's seat to not even have a wildcard spot. They could win the division still. If the Lions lose these next 2 games, which are losable, and the Vikings win their next 2 games, all of a sudden the NFC North is completely up for grabs by the end of the year, which is just mind-blowing. But here's where I'm at, because I think Nick Mullens obviously should play, and it would be a disservice for that locker room to go to Dobbs, and a little bit too of Jaren Hall. But is Nick Mullens the guy? Long-term, is Nick Mullens the guy?
No.
Is he part of your long-term plans? Correct.
No.
Right. Rhetorical question, but no, he is not. If Jaren Hall is part of your long-term plans, I think you're just kind of playing ping pong with yourself of the classic, what quarterback are we going to have going forward if it's just Nick Mullens to put a Band-Aid on a thing to be a wild card and out team when you have Jaren Hall, who's a rookie quarterback and maybe part of your future. I would rather see Jaren Hall get significant playing time. I get why it's Nick Mullens, but if Jaren Hall is part of your future, saying Nick Mullens is our guy too, in my opinion, is just kind of a conundrum that you're just slapping yourself over the head over and over again.
Well, what they're saying is Nick Mullens is the best quarterback to win a game on Saturday against the Bengals. Mm-hmm. I literally think that's their motor. Right? I don't think the bigger vision of where is this thing going in a 3-year window. I don't think that conversation is being had right now. And even if it was being had, and I'm with Declan largely in that I would love to see some Jaren Hall in the next month. And he's probably the next guy up. My guess is Dobbs goes back to the sort of the back of the line, 3rd quarterback, and Jaren Hall is the backup. We'll see what the depth chart looks like on Saturday. But if Jaren Hall was impressive enough since the draft to be the best guy to win a game on Saturday, I think he'd be the guy starting on Saturday. They didn't make any promises to Nick Mullens. It's not like in his contract that, hey, if he's healthy and he's the backup, he has to play in this game. So the only thing they're thinking is who's the best quarterback for Saturday. Now, I'm going to flip over to Declan's side here for a second and say, if you zoomed out a little bit and you asked the question, okay, whether it's Mullens or Hall, how far are you really going to go this year? I mean, there's still a question of them making the playoffs. I think it's like a 60% chance right now, and they could still win the division. So all of that's in front of them, and they should go chase that as long as it's in front of them. But if we're being realistic from a front office standpoint, they're not going into San Francisco against a fully healthy 49ers team. They're probably not walking into Dallas against a healthy Dallas team if that's the game they have to play, in the second round. So what are we doing? Is there a way where we can get a look at Jaren Hall for the future and still have a chance to win a couple games and get to 9 wins and grab a wild card spot? So I get why they're doing it with Mullens. I agree with Declan in that I would like to see some Jaren Hall in the next month.
So let's talk about trust here, okay? Because I think that there was a very fair conversation, especially with the Spielman-Zimmer regime, about trust, quarterback-wise. And this is going to sound probably more derogatory than I mean it to, but I think there got to be a question of, do you really know what you're watching here? Like with Kirk, I mean, Kirk is, but like when it came to like the draft pick of Mond, I think the trust was, one, do you have any chance to develop him? And two, do you know what you're like scouting? Do you know what you're watching here? So my point in saying that is this, though. I think if Jaren Hall consistently behind the scenes again, stuff we don't see, looked good enough, to your point, Phil, he would start. So like until O'Connell, like unless Jaren Hall comes out eventually and lights it up and looks like the next Purdy, right? Like, because that's the comp, late round draft pick. Come on. But until Jaren Hall does that and proves that O'Connell sort of didn't know what he was watching, which I don't believe to be true, I'm with you guys. And I think most fans would say, yeah, Jaren Hall would be way more fun. And like, if he's good, he's good. That's awesome. And Dex is right. I mean, Nick Mullens is the finger in the dike, and eventually it's going to bust and it's going to suck. But the point is, I'm going to trust Kevin O'Connell and this regime on quarterbacks until they prove they don't deserve my trust, because that's why when it came to like Spielman and Zim, I said, I don't trust them. And like the whole point, I'll go back to it. I think a huge part of the reason why O'Connell got that job is because everybody realized who, besides our OCs here, right, who come and go all the time at the time, who really knows about quarterback play in this building? I think you've got one now. And so I'm going to defer to, there must be something about Hall that they don't feel is there yet. And in fairness to them, he's not a second round pick.
No, he was a long shot from the get go. When they decided that they weren't going to trade up, or they weren't going to draft their like real quarterback of the future, first round or second round. Even didn't Will Levis fall like to the third or like late? Like they could have had a Will Levis.
They didn't want, and they didn't like him.
Didn't want him.
And so they passed on him. They could have just taken him. They passed on him.
Yes.
When they made the decision to wait until the fifth round to draft a quarterback, the chances of that guy being your quarterback of the actual future are so small. So, they're just, as of right now, they're just in, how can we beat the next team on the schedule? How can we get some of these passes out on time? There's that one scramble that Dobbs picked up a first down, and we reviewed it with Alex Boone a couple days ago. Nice job, like 12-yard, 15-yard scramble. He's using his legs, and then they pan to the sidelines, and Kevin O'Connell's like, it was like the Bruce Boudreau meme or gif on Twitter where he's, darn. Yeah. And Kevin O'Connell's like, dude, we had a 30-yard pass play gain over the top there if you just put that ball in the window with the timing it's supposed to. And so O'Connell believes that Nick Mullens can step in. Now, Nick Mullens, how much of a chance do they have over the next month is another question here, if it's just Nick Mullens starting quarterback. So 17 starts in his career, 16 of them with the 49ers, 8 in 2018, which was Shanahan's second year, and then 8 more in 2020. Both were Jimmy Garoppolo injury seasons. And then he started one game with the Browns last year. So in those 17 starts, just some information for you guys, Nick Mullens' teams are 5-12. They do average 22 points per game offensively, which is interesting. I think last year you'd say, that's probably not enough because the Vikings defense is allowing like 25 or 26 points per game defensively. Yep. Well, the Vikings defense is holding opponents under 20 points per game this year. And if you take away the first month, if you look at like the last 2 months of how that defense is playing, it's closer to like they're holding opponents to like 2 touchdowns a game. So if he can just put up the 22 points per game that those offenses, mostly San Francisco, have averaged in his 17 starts, then they're going to win. Like they're not going to win every game, but the margin would be like a +4 or +5 points. So I'm kind of looking at it that way too. And in some other seasons, bringing in a backup quarterback with how bad the Vikings defense has been, like the last 2 years of Zimmer and then last year with Ed Donatel at the helm, it's like, all right, well, you got to go score 27 points or 30 points to feel comfortable. You probably only need to score 20 or 21 points to have a legitimate shot to win most of the games left here in the last month of the season.
I would even say, what Nick Mullens has been able to do, and again, with a mad scientist and Kyle Shanahan who can not plug in next to anyone, but like Nick Mullens has had moments with San Francisco, And obviously the Vikings weapons and arsenal here is good. Like, he's not having to step in and play with the Cardinals. Like he's got a really good infrastructure. And I know the offensive line's a little shaky right now. There's been some injuries. But in general, when you have Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, an encouraging rookie wide receiver, and let's just call it an average running game, you can get by with beating a also beaten up team in Cincinnati. It's not a guarantee. I think the Vikings are 3-point underdogs going into that game in Cincy. So, I mean, the Bengals are favored, but Nick Mullens has had moments, and that's why you did trade for him. That's why we were pounding on the table to not have Sean Mannion as a backup going into 2022, because eventually a quarterback's going to get injured. We didn't think it was the extent of an Achilles tear, but if the quarterbacks get hurt, look at all the starting quarterbacks that are injured right now in the NFL.
There's 11 backups scheduled to start this week in the NFL.
Should be a great QB cesspool, too, by the way. Very much looking forward
Tommy
to it.
DeVito's starting, though, and he's not a backup now. He's your starter.
He's a franchise guy now.
Tommy DeVito.
Mullens can step in and obviously win some games, which is important. So I do understand why they have to go to Nick Mullens, too.
So this game in particular, to me, is interesting because I would say Kevin O'Connell is going to have as good of game from an OC type standpoint as Brian Flores has had continually this year. This is going to be yes, Nick Mullens will be the front of the house, front facing guy, right? But you can't just be like, hey, Nick, you know what? I got my pocket passer back. Let's go to it. And if you do look at his stats, Phil, as you were talking about, there definitely are some problems with fumbles. And I think he's only thrown 4 more touchdown passes than picks in his career as a whole. So this is going to be imperative too that O'Connell has a great game himself. And I would say this term has become overused, and I think it gets confused because there's about 3 to 5 different categories. But I would say at the heart of this start for Mullens, he is going to have to be asked to manage the game as brilliantly as possible. Like there cannot, and I don't think that KOC would do this, but there can't be an expectation that, I sort of got my Kirk guy back. Yes, he's a pocket passer, but you're also going to have to say, what can this guy do literally to score some points, but just as importantly, and this is what you don't have to necessarily do with a starting quarterback, what can he do not to train wreck the game? And more importantly, then as the OC, what can I do as the play caller not to put him in that position?
And that's what, Josh Dobbs train wrecked a couple games for you,
correct,
right? That's where Kirk Cousins in the 6 years he's been with the Vikings has very rarely train wrecked games. And that is something you're trying to avoid. And I do have some bad news for you on that front. So let's go into the next phase of getting to know Nick Mullens. So let me give you, let's look at his career stats in some key categories. If you took all right, here's Nick Mullens in the 17 starts. Let's take those 17 starts worth of stats and compare them to this year's NFL rankings of quarterbacks. So his career yards per attempt would actually be 6th among. So there's some good news in here. Yards per attempt would be 6th. Now some of that is, dude, that Shanahan offense when it's dialed up and you've got a fully healthy allotment of Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel and George Kittle, and a lot of those concepts are just scheming wide open skill position players, and it's yards after the catch. So it's nice to play in that system. Your yards per attempt go up because of yards after the catch and everything else. Sure. Sack avoidance, he would be 5th. He doesn't take a lot of sacks, despite being. Now, it helps to have Trent Williams as your left tackle over here, but the Vikings have good tackles. I think so many times we equate sacks to it's just an offensive line stat. It's much, much more of a quarterback stat than people give credit to. Peyton Manning had seasons where he was taking 11 sacks all year.
Yeah.
Not because he's Lamar Jackson moving out of the pocket, or not because he had Jeff Saturday is a Hall of Famer up front, right? But
Charlie Johnson was his left tackle for a year.
Yep. Getting the ball out and moving in the right spots, there's an art to that. And I will say that Nick Mullens in his 17 starts is great at sack avoidance, okay? Here's where it gets a little more questionable. His career QBR would rank 24th among this year's quarterbacks. His career passer rating would rank 21st, so not a total train wreck. Actually, he'd actually be right behind Matthew Stafford on that list this year. His career interception rate, so percentage of attempts that are interceptions, would be 30th. So he's very interception happy, as Judd pointed out, the INT stats. And his PFF grade overall for his career would slide in 32nd among current NFL quarterbacks. When he's under pressure, this is the worst thing. This is what I worry about the most is, hey, when it's a clean pocket and he's got weapons, he's probably going to make some good in-rhythm, on-time throws. In 2020, among 36 qualified quarterbacks, he had the 4th worst PFF grade under pressure. In fact, let's see here. Almost one in every 11 plays for him was a turnover-worthy play when he was pressured, which is not good. And he threw 2 touchdowns and 7 interceptions when pressured, with only 4.5 yards per attempt. So, when he's pressured, not only does he not play well, but he has a chance to kind of sabotage you with interceptions. So that's the biggest thing to watch out for on Saturday.
The Bengals are, I actually checked this out this morning. The Bengals, I believe, have 35 sacks, which is tied for 16th or 17th. So they don't get, they're good, but they don't get a top 5 pressure rate as far as sacks go, at least the results. What concerns me here more than the quarterback, because again, I think this is a quarterback who's going to have to be managed heavily to get the most from him. What concerns me most is the health of Brian O'Neill, who they had a walkthrough yesterday, the Vikings did, but they had to issue an injury report because it's the technically Wednesday since the game's on Saturday. And O'Neill did not take part. Ed Ingram took part with his injury, but he would have been limited. And then the question is, Dalton Reisner twisted his ankle as well, which is the same thing O'Neill did, and he came back in that game. But I think the thing I'm most concerned about right now is the health of that line. Now, Quisenberry, I think, as we talked about, PFF-wise, graded out pretty well on Sunday. But that being said, O'Neill is a Pro Bowl type of player. So that does definitely concern me. But there is no question, too, as far as whatever the Vikings have at running back, Saturday, you're going to have to rely on the run game to a certain degree. There's just no question about it. You have to, and O'Connell has to.
Here's one more question on just the next month here with Nick Mullens. Is there any chance this could be a Case Keenum situation where Keenum Keenum played the whole year almost. He started 13 or 14 games, but Keenum had been in the league as, I think Mullens was undrafted, right? Pretty sure out of Southern Mississippi.
Yeah,
he was undrafted. Case Keenum, who was currently still the top yardage passer in college football history. I don't think his records at Texas Tech have been broken, or Houston. He went to Houston. But he had been in the league as an undrafted guy for a handful of years. He had racked up 15 or 20 starts, just like Nick Mullens racked up 17 starts with a losing record, pretty well under 500. Showed you some flashes here and there. And then he steps in to a great situation. Now, the difference is Mullens was in a great situation with those San Francisco teams were going to Super Bowls and making playoff runs. And then they took a dip with Nick Mullens. So that's probably the counter argument. But I mean, is there a chance that, hey, you just get a guy in here, he's a professional quarterback, he's been in the league for a handful of years, he's started enough games, he's got weapons to throw to, he's got a franchise left tackle. Is there a chance they go 3-1 and now all of a sudden, there's a chance to win the division? Could there be a Case Keenum situation here?
There could be, but I think it's going to have to be. And I think this is the one thing that we forget about the Keenum year in 2017. It would have to be in conjunction, I guess, with O'Connell being outstanding as well. Because the one thing about, we don't talk about probably enough what Pat Shurmur meant to Keenum. Oh, yeah. Pat Shurmur had an unbelievable year. I will go to my grave saying that's one of the greatest years I will ever see a Vikings OC have. He dialed up the right plays consistently. Whatever he was doing, and it was so successful that I feel like OCs get lost in of course they're playing well. But I think that if O'Connell manages this right, could you win 3 games? Absolutely. Detroit's not playing well. Green Bay's a wild card type of team, right? So it's not like you're staring down the barrel of, oh my God, you got to go to Philadelphia and then play San Francisco or something like that. So yes, I think there is a chance, but I think it would very much be in conjunction with O'Connell, again, being essentially as good a play caller as Flores has been defensively. And that's a lot to ask. But, I do think O'Connell, to his credit, I do think he probably, at the end of the day, milked as much as he could from the Dobbs experiment. But eventually, as we talked about with Case, Phil, at the time, the glass slipper has to go back.
But that's what's amazing about just like quick side street. I'm not saying he doesn't deserve any criticism and he's been perfect. There's been things to nitpick with Kevin O'Connell, but like the people that are mad at O'Connell or want to like instantly replace O'Connell with Brian Flores, and it's like, dudes, he's on his 4th starting quarterback. The season started with a machine gun fire of fumbles that cost them games, right? Like these weird fluke fumbles they fumbled 4 times on the freaking goal line in the first month of the season. And through all of it, 4 starting quarterbacks, a record number of fumbles in the first month of the season. Through all of it, they're sitting here with like a 60% chance to make the playoffs and be one of the only teams in NFL history to overcome an 0-3 start. And like feels like everyone's sitting here like Brian Flores it's like, okay, Flores is yes, but Kevin O'Connell hired Brian Flores as his coordinator. So Kevin O'Connell gets credit in this building process too for a lot of what's happening on the defensive side of the ball as the leader of an organization.
I think that's a loud group though, right? Like I think that's a loud, because it's ridiculous. Like that whole thing is, and O'Connell does deserve some credit for those 1+ or 2 games in which Dobbs was good too.
Yeah.
Like those don't just get dismissed. He took a guy who got here, and yes, it's a great story for Dobbs, but he literally took a guy, after 3 or 4 days, who had arrived here in a trade and had no idea what he was doing.
Didn't know the names.
And he let him down the field via basically saying, let's not huddle so I can talk to you as long as possible.
Yeah.
Like that's a story that probably, it sounded cute at the time, but if you really think about that, it's pretty damn impressive. And it's impressive from both sides, not just Joshua Dobbs.
Yeah.
On the Case Keenum part, I think there's actually like a lot of ridiculous comparables here. So obviously Case had Thielen and Diggs, and Rudolph was still pretty good. Obviously Mullens has Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison.
Mm-hmm.
This offensive line, I think, is actually better than 2017's when everyone's fully healthy.
Better left tackle, better right tackle.
Brian O'Neill wasn't there yet. So the infrastructure's there. And Pat Shurmur did coach his ass off to put Case Keenum in the right situations. But like Kevin O'Connell is obviously, even though he's only been a head coach for, 25, 30 games, I think he's more of a trustworthy head coach than Pat Shurmur too. So like there is a ridiculous amount of comparables on top of, too, by the way, the 2017 defense being the best in the NFL and this Flores defense also being really good. There is some substance to get lost in the sauce of a Case Keenum run here with Nick Mullens plugged in as the starting quarterback.
Yeah, the defensive thing is interesting because that was the number 1 defense in the NFL, allowing 16 points a game. This is the number 5 defense in the NFL, allowing 18.5 points a game. So they're only like maybe 2.5 or 3 points off from each other, which that can be a lot, but they're top five defenses. Keenum wasn't being asked to go and light it up like he was in college at Houston for 500 yards a game. He was being asked to go out there, hit your weapons, get the ball out, don't train wreck games. He tried to a couple times, probably had some luck on interceptions that weren't returned for big gains.
Oh,
but
he took chances.
There's some
He took chances. The comparable that is probably the most concerning is this. If you guys recall, the Keenum magical carpet ride began to come to an end when I think it was Nick Easton, who was the right guard, broke his leg in Green Bay or broke his ankle. And then they moved Remmers from like right tackle to left guard, and they started to screw around. And I guess the comparable here is if the offensive line, like if you are down O'Neill now for a game or 2 games, if you are down guys offensive line wise, we probably never focused on that enough.
Yeah.
But that became a problem, and that's a potential comparable. If Brian O'Neill is out, like I'm sorry, and Quisenberry, God bless him, played well. That's still a big deal.
One of the 3 highest graded players. You might remember that from yesterday. Judd guesses the PFF grades.
I do remember that, but that's still a that's still going to be a sticking point if he's out for.
I thought he looked pretty good. Quisenberry. I might look to trade Brian O'Neill after what I saw on Sunday.
Oh, don't even suggest that. Remember when I said they might be getting some calls on Darisaw, and I spent the next month being just torched by the fan base.
If you like Quisenberry, maybe you can get a second round pick for O'Neill. I don't know. Hey, let's mock here. Let's mock here. We do have the CBS Sports 4.0. This mock presented by our friends at AG1. Handful of years ago, yours truly, in an effort to up my nutrition game, I discovered AG1 products, which really put just a nice jolt in my morning, sometimes in my afternoon, depending on when I would scoop that scoop in with my water. 75 high-quality ingredients, important daily nutrients. It doesn't take the place. Like you should still eat healthy, but it's just great nutritional insurance that helps support your body's universal needs like gut optimization, stress management, immune support. And so if you'd like to take ownership of your health, it starts with AG1. Try AG1, get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3, K2, and 5 free AG1 travel packs. I actually for my last order, I just got the travel packs this time because I feel like I'm bouncing around different places, and so it's nice to have those travel packs. Go to drinkag1.com/purple daily. That's drinkag1.com/purple daily and check it out. So also, let's shout out to our friends over at Nutrisource. Speaking of health foods and healthy things.
Good for you.
Maya Mackey is all about the Nutrisource chicken and rice. Nutrisource is the official dog and pet food of Purple Daily and Score North, gentlemen.
Yep. And Stella, guess what? That little girl, that look came because she said, you know what, old man, we are out of treats. And Nutrisource treats, there's nothing more important. And I said, all right. So I got in the car, drove to my local Chuck and Don's. And of course, they are well stocked with treats. And so this morning she came inside from doing her duty and was very happy to see Nutrisource treats.
We got a birthday coming up here for Vinny Boy. I got my birthday on Friday. Vinny Boy's birthday's on Christmas Eve. And, now I don't think I'll dabble in the Nutrisource treats, although they smell so good. I kind of do want to take a bite. You don't get pictures like this with birthday boys unless you have some Nutrisource treats in front of you. So very excited for a nice little celebratory birthday weekends for me and Vinny Boy.
Yeah. NutrisourcePetFoods.com to find a Nutrisource retailer. Chuck and Don's is a great one near you. Okay, boys, here we go. It's mock time.
I want to mock.
Mock season is ramping up. We keep track of every mock we do on this show and on our other podcasts so that we can see, okay, what are the sort of the consensus trends? We've done 6 of them so far. Michael Penix twice goes to the Vikings. Bo Nix went to the Vikings a couple weeks ago, PFF mock. And then there's other sporadics like edge rusher Jared Verse from Florida State a week ago on the Pro Football Network mock. But let's see what the CBS Sports 4.0 mock says. I'm just going through this as you guys are. I have not scrolled all the way down. Caleb Williams, number 1 to the Patriots.
Oh, interesting.
In a simulated trade here.
Interesting.
They're trading already. 4.0.
Well, yeah, 4.0, man.
This is great.
No time to waste.
So then the Bears would pick up some draft capital here, move back and take Marvin Harrison Jr. with the number 2 pick. And then let's keep going here. Whoa. With the number 4 pick, the second quarterback off the board, Jaden Daniels from LSU.
Oh, wow.
I think this is the first mock we've seen go rogue here on the quarterback order, right?
It definitely is. It's the first one we've read that's gone rogue. 100%.
It's mock season. We're not even we're 2 months from the combine and we're already doing this. This is great.
Well, this is genius of them, by the way.
With the 6th pick bouncing around here, the third quarterback off the board, Drake May.
Okay.
Joe Alt, Minnesota's own, Notre Dame's own. The big offensive tackle goes to the Jets at 7. Let's see here. I'm looking for quarterbacks.
Who took May, Phil? Who took Drake May?
Sorry, the Giants.
Okay.
The Giants, my bad. All right, we got, okay. Wait a second. What did I say? Drake May, Giants? Okay, so now we have 4th quarterback off the board at 11. To the Raiders, Michael Penix Jr. So if 4 quarterbacks are off the board here, Judd, I know you'd look to go edge. We have to kind of see, where's the gap? Are there 4 legitimate edge rushers? That's the thing we don't really.
Right.
I guess we can talk to our guys on Purple Daily on Draft, Declan, Tyler Fornes, and Miles Gorham. Okay, scrolling. You see me scrolling. No more quarterbacks. So we get to 21. Here we go. The Vikings are on the clock with the 21st overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. The Minnesota Vikings select out of the University of Illinois defensive lineman Jerzon Newton.
I want a mock!
He is a 6'2", 295-pound beast defensive lineman. Newton played on an Illini defense that included number 5 overall pick Devin Witherspoon last year and a couple day 2 selections. The defensive lineman will be the next in line to hear his name called from Illinois early in the draft. They could definitely use something other than a jag on their defensive line, right? So there you have it.
So
no other quarterbacks in the first round.
Flores sticks around, gets a huge pay increase, and they say, we'll draft a defensive guy first round for you.
And, if this happens, and so those were the only 4 quarterbacks in the first round, you'd still have, J.J. McCarthy in the second round, Bo Nix in the second round. There's Jalen Hurts was a second round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lamar Jackson was the last pick in the first round. So you could go like defensive line, and then second round, you could still draft a talented quarterback.
I wonder if a guy like McCarthy or Nix, though, would go late first round to get the 5th-year option. But again, you know what? Stuff changes. Like, I mean, at this time, well, hell, for months, how long did we have Levis going in mock drafts, like top
4th
5
overall? Yeah, it's ridiculous.
And then he free fell. So who knows?
So, all right. Well, this was just a little bonus Purple Daily for you guys here
4.0.
today.
We're at 4.0.
Dude,
Season's not
CBS.
even over.
Dude, yeah, CBS, you can do a 5.0 before Christmas. Come on, guys. Let's make it happen. So, all right, thank you guys for hanging out with us. Vikings have their 4th starting quarterback of the year. We will hit you with our Write That Down predictions and an accountability session on another episode on this Wednesday. We will see you guys later today.